Hey there, Alga Talkers, and welcome to another episode of AlgaTalk. This is a special episode since we are celebrating World Algae Day this October 12th. And what better way to celebrate algae on this day than with an interview with one of its co-founders, Jorg Ullmann. In 2004, Ullmann started a job as production manager at an algae farm. He wanted to connect to his customer base and to create product awareness. He started with a blog about algae, which kind of adds to the theme of this podcast. It's just starting something. We of course talk about the importance of algae and how he started World Algae Day. But like Jorg says, if you have an idea, just focus on your idea and everything else will come afterwards. So now let's focus on some algae with Jorg Ullmann.
My name is Jorg Ullmann. I have studied years ago biology and innovation management and general management in Germany, in Norway. When I finished my career at a university, I was looking for a job in the industry. And there was that time a very strange job description and job offer in the newspaper talking about an algae farm in Germany, and they were looking for a production manager with a background in biology. And it sound that strange more than 18 years ago that I said, wow, this could be something for me. So I have to apply, and I did. And days after, I got an invitation for the first interview. And the interview was scheduled for an hour or something. And after 3 hours, we finished. So it was, exciting to exchange on that topic, to learn even in my first interview, what is it about, why algae? I had no idea about algae at all. Of course, I had studied biology, but even during my studies, we just touched algae when we learned about photosynthesis or whatever, but nothing about the potential of algae in food and bioeconomy or whatever, just photosynthesis. So, and this was for me a bit, sorry to say that, a bit boring to learn all these metabolic pathways. So algae had not the best taste for me after my studies. But when I heard about this project, about this first microalgae farm and industrial scale in Europe, and what were the goals and where they want to go, I said immediately, wow, that's exciting. That's something very exotic. And so we agreed to meet for a second interview after some weeks. And again, it was a long and good interview, and it was a good mood during the interview. And at the end, they said, okay, let's go to the production site, to the greenhouse, so that you can see your potential place where you have to work. Right. And we entered the greenhouse, and you see the picture behind me. It's my background picture. And They opened the door, and I was there in the middle of 500 kilometers of glass tubes. Sunlight came in. It was a kind of reflection. It looks futuristic. And I said, wow, I have never seen something like that. And the former boss asked me, okay, can you imagine to work here as a production manager, to be a manager of so many people, to organize?
Right. No, it's interesting. Your story sounds very much like a lot of, when I worked at AlgaTalk, for instance, a lot of the scientists that came to work there were, out of their masters, or they were doing their PhD in biology that had nothing to do with algae. Algae was not really even on their radar. And then they show up and they're like, wow, look at this. This is really amazing. Like when you walk around, it is futuristic, and the sunlight, coming through. I mean, even for the future, going to space you need, algae in the future. But it definitely has that kind of edge to it, that it kind of sneaks up on you out of nowhere. And I think that's why, algae awareness is a part of that. And so what are you doing now? Like now that you told the story, like, you know, that you got interested in it from, you know, getting that interview, like a lot of people, and then starting this, managing the farm. Where did the story keep going? Like, where are you now? And
yeah, after that final question or the final question of that interview, I answered yes. I want to
right,
start here as a production manager. And in the beginning, we needed a lot of time, and we spent a lot of work to bring this algae farm into operation, to manage the biological process, to manage the technology, and all of that. We were successful. But then the next problem that was already on the horizon but became now more relevant was how to sell this kind of product. So we had a lot of chlorella powder in stock. And when you looked at the market 20 years ago, there was no established algae market at all in Europe. So it was completely unknown, or nearly completely unknown. There were just some people knowing it from their holidays in Asia or whatever, but there was no industry within demand. There was no end customer within demand. So the next question was, okay, we have an algae farm that is working, but now how to create demand in customers? And yeah, that was the time when we started to do oral presentations in the public, or we did publications, but in popular sciences, because
right. So you started reaching out to the public to try to get an
right.
understanding of where does the public sit on this information, right?
There were so many interesting stories around algae. There were so many interesting research articles about algae, but nobody knew about this. And I was always asking myself the question, why the hell no one is telling these interesting stories to the people? Because my experience was, when I did a presentation in front of, I don't know, 30, 50 people about carbon capture with algae, about the food of the future, and all of that things, about the importance of algae in our ecosystems, in some curiosities in the biology, or even the use in the industries. People came after these presentations to me and said, wow, why no one said or told these stories before? It's so interesting. And this was the beginning. And the next step was there were so many interesting scientific about the health impact of algae. When you just eat a teaspoon of it or something, and no one knew about it. And we started to translate this scientific results into kind of popular way to the people, so that I always said, okay, my grandmother has to understand it, or my son. It must be an easy language, so no esoteric stories and such things. And this is how we started. And I even started a blog. It was called Die Welt der Algen, in English, the world of algae. And I started to collect stories. I wrote articles, I collected recipes and all of that. Wow. And I put it in this blog, and it was, more or less successful for me.
Does the website still exist?
The website still exists, but it's very quiet since 5 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But still, it sounds very much like what I'm trying to do with AlgaTalk, or it's very difficult to, because I feel sometimes when algae is like so expansive, it's hard to concentrate on one point and go recipes or plastics or vitamins, or nutritional supplements, or medicines, or it keeps going, dyes, that kind of thing. It keeps going, and it's hard to like put that all together in a website and all together. But we're trying, and the more of us try, we'll crack the code someday. So
right, and now it's already a different stories compared to 20 years ago, because now especially the media are aware of the potential of algae. So algae, they have a very good image. Of course, you have some articles about algae bloom and sure, the negative impact, but most of the articles, most of the broadcasted documentaries are about the huge potential of algae for carbon capture as a sustainable source to produce food or feed or biomass for different uses. You told it, or you summarized it right now, for natural dyes or fine chemicals, or even as fertilizer or whatever. There are so many potential. So there's a lot.
There's a huge one about fish feed. Fish feed we're going to need because there's not a lot of fish left in the ocean anymore, and at some point we're going to have to start growing them either offshore or inland. And algae, we're going to have to use algae to feed them, and that's going to be a major market at some probably time in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, and especially fish feed is a very nice example to talk about the potential of algae and about the sustainability aspect, because what was done before in the fish farms, you fed, in fact, wild catched fish, produce meal out of them. So it was not very sustainable, because you went to the wild, you catched fish, you produced a meal out of it, and you fed it to your aquaculture fish. If you think about it, it's not very clever. Right. But then you could look to the nature and to see, okay, in the beginning, in every aquatic ecosystem, the phytoplankton, and this is mainly composed of microalgae, they are the primary producer in the aquatic ecosystem. So they are producing the protein, they are producing the omega-3 fatty acids. And so it was a very clever way of thinking to say, okay, if we shorten this kind of artificial food chain we have right now to just algae fish, then you come to a point where it's very sustainable and without any disturbing of natural ecosystems.
Yeah, which is very important in the future as sustainability. It's not, I think back in the day, people just wanted, a lack of a better word is to make the money. Like, what's the quickest way I can make the money? Not thinking, is this sustainable for 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years? Is this possible that we're just going to be able to go out and fish forever? It's not sustainable.
Yes, and it's okay, if you want to make money, you have to make money to survive. But
sure,
you have to ask the question, could you make the same money with your same business model in 30 years? And if you destroy the basis of your business model, if you destroy the oceans and the source of your raw materials, then you will not have a sustainable business model in 30 years. So you have, at least now, and it's very late to start with, to think about in a circular way, to renew resources, to recycle resources, to have a circular economy. And algae could really contribute to this kind of considerations, to create a kind of bioeconomy based on algae.
Absolutely. And these are some of the stories you would tell as you would try to create awareness in the public. So people must have grabbed onto that and seen, when you simplify it, sustainability, we're losing fish. When you tell them a story of this is why we need algae, it makes it easier, more palatable for them to take. And so how did the community accept these stories? That they were aware of them, they enjoyed them, they must have interacted. Like you said, they had this kind of wow experience, like, wow, I didn't know this. Where did you go from there? Like, from the wow experience, where did you take it?
Yeah, so the wow experience was for me something, or a kind of point where I said, wow, we are on the right way. Maybe we cannot simply focus on our core business, and our core business at that time was algae, but it's not easy if you have no customers. So you have to think in new ways, you have to create new ways to sell these kind of products. And at that time we decided, okay, we have to publish very regularly in an easy written language stories around algae. We have to go to the fairs to apply for presentations, to do it in front of the customers, also to be ready for the discussion, but always with this need of, or with this scientific background, and not to promise people what algae cannot do. But
Right, absolutely.
and this was also the time when I started this blog, or even with this blog, I attracted a big publisher, a very famous one here in Germany, asking me 1 year after starting if I'm ready to write a cookbook, topic of algae. And I said, wow,
Sure.
I'm a biologist. Okay, I'm not a chef,
Right.
but I like to eat, and I like to eat algae, and I like to do experiments with this kind of raw material in my kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I can do it. I will do it together with my wife. She's very experienced. She had already published a cookbook. So I said, okay, I do more the biological part. She's doing more the recipe part, and we did it together. We published it, and during the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2016, we got a gold medal of the Gastronomic Academy of Germany. So it was a big honor for me, a big surprise for us. A year later, another publisher, also a famous one here in Germany, came and said, okay, we have this standard publication talking about food safety of different categories, milk or meat or whatever, and you have a lot of issues to think about, but we never found someone who could write this chapter about algae, and this is something very new, and we want to have it in our standard publication.
Yeah.
Are you ready to do it? And I said, wow, this was the chapter I was always missing, because I also had a lot of questions, and I just had to go to the primary literature to look in the scientific publication about contamination risks, food safety, food hygiene of algae, the different algae taxonomic clades, what is different between blue-green algae or green algae maybe in terms of potential risks for humans as well. Yeah. And I said, I was always looking for such a chapter. Okay, maybe I should write it by myself. And I said, okay, yes, I try it. I will start with this chapter, and then we have to renew it. And it was also very successful. It's now also in a book called Modern Kitchen Management. So people are interested in that.
What's the name of the recipe book that you wrote with your wife? If someone wanted to find this recipe book that you made, or this chapter, is it in English? Is it possible to find? What was the name of it? That kind of thing.
The cookbook is published in German language, but we try to attract at the moment publisher from other countries to translate it into their languages, to go more into the abroad as well. And the other one is just in German at the moment. And yeah, since it is not our core business, we don't try to push it too much because we have to concentrate on our business. But if
as an algae farmer, I understand, like you're booked. I mean, I'm even happy that I'm talking to you now. Like the having to be a production manager of an algae farm is almost a 24-hour job. I mean, you want to interact with them, and they, some reactors, they look beautiful behind you now, but I'm sure sometimes they get infected, and you have all types of situations that you have to deal with. So maybe cookbooks aren't the top of your list of things that you have to get out there. But very cool. I mean, it does show that you're reaching out. What do you do, like the algae farm in your background? Are you like from production manager, like CEO, or like where's your standing now? Because it seems like you started out and you keep rising up to the top. I mean, usually, like they say, the cream, rises to the top. You must be on some level, not what you started out in the interview. You must have progressed from there.
Yeah, I started in 2004 as a production manager, and I already started also some research projects because there were so many questions to answer. And if you looked around, there were no answers, at least not published. So most of the question we asked ourselves, we had to answer also by ourselves. So we started also research projects. So this was the beginning, and I focused on the production to make it real, to start with a good quality and quantity with this very new technology, with nearly no experience with that and all of this.
What's the name of the company, and where can they purchase your algae online? Or
the name of the company at that time was Bioprodukte Professor Steinberg Produktions- und Vertriebs GmbH and Co. KG.
Cool.
Yeah, I always, and if you went to the phone and you said, okay, my name is Jorg Ullmann from the Bioprodukte Professor Steinberg Produktions- und Vertriebs GmbH and Co. KG, most of the people said, wow, what's that?
Exactly. So, what is that? What does that actually translate to?
No, it was just the name at that time.
Okay.
The name of one of the founders was inside, and it was calling somewhere.
Okay.
It's bioproducts. It's Professor Steinberg. It's a production unit. It's a sales unit, and everything in one name. So
it kind of sounds like a little bit like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I felt like that was going to translate into that or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. Even with the name, we wanted to tell a story already.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and this is how it starts. And then it moved in a direction I never expected, because we got some very complicated or customer requests concerning the production or the biology of algae. And these very complicated customer requests came on my desk because I was biologist, I was the production manager, so maybe I was the best who could answer. And I started answering these kind of messages, and the customers were happy with my answers. So they bought our product. So, wow, if you answer their questions, they buy our product. This was also a new experience. And for me, it was a problem because I got more and more customer requests on my desk beside my job as a production manager. So it was a lot.
So this kind of customer service, I mean, you're using social media, you're using email, you're connecting to the customer on a more personal basis, which creates more customers. I mean, this is a known business thing. A lot of people don't do it, but it could really work within the algae industry, social media and companies reaching out to their customers.
Yeah. And if you make the customer happy, okay, you can create a long-term relationship with them, and they will buy again. And this is how the basis of your business, for my understanding at least. There was a time when people asked me, okay, are you willing to do it as your primary job, to move from the job of a production manager to marketing and sales manager? And I said, wow, I never wanted to be a sales manager. I'm not educated in that. I have no real background. I haven't studied it. And yeah, I slept 1 or 2 nights with this question or with this offer in my head. Maybe I'm the best one at that time to do it with this background, knowing about the production details, knowing about the biological details. And I said yes. So this was the time. It was around 2008. When I moved from the position of production manager to the position of the marketing and sales manager, but still carrying on our research projects. And in 2012, then I was asked to be the managing director of that company. And again, it was a big step for me because you don't learn such things at the university. Yeah,
sure.
I was maybe not a bad biologist, but I don't know if I'm a good managing director.
Right. Now you have to start ordering stuff. You got to start doing a whole list of other responsibilities. Yeah.
Yes, also a lot of risky things if it comes to taxes or regulations or I don't know. But I said, okay, I will do it. It's a new chance. It's a new opportunity. I like to enter new stages, let's say. And I said, yes, I do it. So in 2012, yeah, this was the beginning of being the managing director. For us, it was always not critical, but of course, the question, what is our business model today, tomorrow, and in the next future? We started to expand our product range, which is quite logical to answer the market needs because it was already the time when the market grew. So there was a demand in different microalgal species. So we tried to produce them all in this photobioreactor system.
What were you producing and what did you start producing? Chlorella, and then from that to or spirulina?
No, I think the first alga beside chlorella that we produced was Nanochloropsis, and it was by customer demand. So someone came.
It kind of looks like Nanochloropsis behind you, that bright green. Is it possible? Or just a guess?
No, this is a freshly inoculated photobioreactor with chlorella. So
Okay.
it's really fresh, nice green. If it's Nanochloropsis, it looks more dirty green, like black green, something like
right.
that.
Okay, like a Christmas green.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. So this is how it started. And then, okay, I said, if you look to the world market, okay, spirulina has most of the shares compared to chlorella, so we have to go for spirulina. And everyone said me, oh no, don't go for spirulina. Spirulina will not grow in your tubular system. The production costs will be too high, so the product will be too expensive. And I said, yes, but we are on a premium market. Let's try it at least. And everyone said, no, don't do it. And then I said, okay, if I get my first LOE from a customer saying, okay, I will buy some hundred of kilograms of spirulina, can I start then? And then they said, okay, if you find some customer or even one customer with an LOE, then you can start a trial. And I went to my wife. So she has a company selling vegan food, raw food. And she was already selling a lot of algae. And I said, hey, I have this problem. Can you sign me an LOE to buy the first, I don't know, 200 or 300 kilograms of spirulina if I am able to produce? And she said immediately, yes, wow, if you can produce it here in Klötze, it would be great. I would have a story, yeah, I have a local producer and everything. And I said, yes, okay, perfect, do it. A day later, I went to my boss and said, hey, here you have your LOE, the first 300 kilograms all sold. And he said, wow, crazy, yeah, started. And we started, and it grew. It grew very well, very high growth rates.
Really, in a PBR, it grows well.
Yeah, even with the pumps and all of it, the quality was very good. The only thing was, okay, we could just produce it in the real summertime, and it was very hot outside. But at that time point, there was also the consideration. I told you, we also had requests for Nanochloropsis. And I said, okay, maybe it makes no sense for us to produce the whole year chlorella with a temperature optimum of 25 or 28 centigrades. Maybe it's much more clever to produce in the springtime an alga with a lower temperature optimum like Nanochloropsis, then switch to chlorella. In the hot summer weeks, we are switching again to spirulina, and then the other way around, chlorella again, and at the end of the year, Nanochloropsis, especially here in Germany. Because then you can change the cultures in the PBR. You would reduce the general contamination risks because you have a change of culture. And you could open your production window, not only producing chlorella from late April to October. Maybe now you could start end of February to produce till mid of November. And this was the second idea behind, and it worked. And it worked that well. And even with the spirulina, that we were sold out immediately. So we could produce a different amount, and it was sold out within months. So
is the German market like vegan, like high amounts, like I would say maybe 20-30%? Is it like, because algae really fits in with the vegan diet as a substitute for protein or many other things. Can you tell me about the German market and how they seem to have been very accepting of everything that you were doing? So there must be something there within Germany that's prone to eating algae.
There is a kind of, if we can say it like this, a kind of traditional market for chlorella. It's touching the detox story. So a lot of natural doctors or practitioners are using chlorella and even other algae for detox therapies.
Right.
So this is one part of the market. The other market that was at that time point very interesting for us was the vegan market, because we are studying the vitamin B12 in chlorella. So it's a very interesting story. We are studying since many, many years. So this is one of the plant-based sources with a reliable B12 content and even with the bioavailable forms. So this was something that fits very well in the vegan market. And now this market is very creative and creates by itself demand in algae, because if we talk about fish alternatives, they are asking for the omega-3 fatty acids or even for the fish-like taste to mimic the fish in these artificial alternatives. So there are very new markets that are starting right now. And this is very interesting. And we are happy to start very early to enter the vegan market. And we always tried also to educate people on the health aspects of eating algae, to reduce the infection risk, or to strengthen your immune system, or to accelerate wound healing and everything. And this is maybe the third market. It's more with a medical approach, and it's hard to sell products like this because you are not allowed to work with this non-EFSA approved health claims.
Yeah, no, it makes it more difficult for it to go from nutritional supplement to actual medical medicine, basically.
Right. Yeah, but these are maybe the markets, and even there's a kind of health food market to have some trendy products like lemonades or smoothies or bars enriched with chlorella to claim the vitamin B12, or just to claim there is an alga inside. Because this always also changed in the last 15 years or 18 years. In the beginning, everyone said, wow, algae are maybe interesting, but with its green color, it has no future in food application, because green is a kind of warning color. And I knew it from my times during studies when I was a single, when I was at home and something in my fridge turned to the green color. It was time to throw it away because it was dangerous to eat. So, but this changed also years ago. So green is now a color for natural, for plant-based, for healthy. So, and this also helps a lot to sell this kind of algae in the food market. So a lot of things changed, and this is due to the education of the people. And here we have to do much more, because we try to educate our end customer. But the next gap we identify is that algae are not present in the studies of food science or whatever. It's still not present. I am invited to do some lecture about potential of algae as and in food, even for food scientists at the universities. And after even these lectures, they ask me, where can I read about it? Where is it summarized? And I said, at the moment, there's nothing. So this is
right. So that kind of brings it back to what you were saying. When you were learning biology, algae wasn't there in the academics as much as it. I mean, it really should be. We wouldn't be here without algae. The oxidization, feeding fish, us living by the shore, using it for wounds, the Vikings using it for homes. I mean, you can keep going. It's surprising. So you're saying it's still kind of the same problem, is that these young students are coming up to you and saying, I'm seeing this in my textbook. It talks about algae, chlorophyll, oxidization. Great, good job, algae. But I haven't seen, it's got omega-3, it's got B12, it's got this, it's got all these things. And why is that? Because I'm pretty sure when you go to your biochem class, they're talking about carbon and nitrogen and all wonderful things they can do. Why are they not talking about algae?
Right. And for me, again, it's totally logical. If you want to create such a new industry, and algae industry is still very young, it's not older than 70 years or 75 years. If we talk about industrial scale production of algae, if you want to develop it in a sustainable way, you need education. You need this education on each level, starting at schools where it is not present, starting at the universities where the topic is not present, because these are the people sitting after years in the product development departments of the different companies with a different task. But if they don't know about the potential of algae, or if they can maybe just do their trials with them, they will never ask for this. So, and it's like always, it's all about education. And this is something we try to do. And now I'm very happy we are not longer alone since many, many years. In the beginning, maybe yes, but there are still so many things to do.
Yeah, one of the things that you've done is create World Algae Day in 2017, which is an important, educational tool.
Yeah, maybe two examples. The one was World Algae Day. I was always wondering, there was a World Pasta Day or a World Bread Day or whatever. And even when I looked after four World Algae Day, there was nothing. And I said, wow, why there is not a World Algae Day? And I had this idea many, many years before, but I was not ready to say, okay, I am the person to create it. But in 2017, it was like this. And the second example is a very recent one. I don't know, you know this experimental kits for children where you can do experiments to create crystal. And I liked as a kid to play with these experimental kits. And I always asked since many, many years the question, why there is not such an experimental kit dealing with algae? Because you can explain with very easy to do experiments. All the things happen outside. Even now, climate crisis, eutrophication of lakes, with the nutrient runoff, this oxygen production, food production, color production, you can easily extract the colors. And that's why we decided we create these algae experimental kits. I did it together with a teacher and with someone from design sciences, and was very successful. We have the prototype now. And we were finalists of a creative award in Germany with this idea.
How long ago was this?
It was this year when we were finalists, a few months ago. And now we just refine it. And we are already in talks with producers of such experimental kits to bring it really to the market. And this shows two things for me. There is a lot of open space for innovation, for ideas that already exist in other markets. You just have to transfer it to the algae world, and to realize it. So there's a lot to do. It's a very exciting time, and you really can fill all of these gaps that are not filled yet with your ideas, and you can really set a footprint.
And these kits are going to go to schools around Germany first, and then maybe Europe if it expands. I mean, you could contact the EU and maybe work it around the area. Who knows? I'm thinking because it's very exciting, because this idea of school kits for I'm guessing kids from the age of 10 to 16 or 18 or whatever. If we want them, for instance, if we were talking about how in colleges the young students are not learning about the magnitude of things that they could do with algae. If you started at a younger age, you don't have to worry about, I mean, we're going to have to wait another 10 years or so, but, these the younger children will start to, you could inspire a kid to all of a sudden be interested in algae. And it does make sense because algae is a little slimy. It's a little bit, it has that kind of collecting insects as a kid sort of a shtick to it. You know what I mean? It's got like that kind of, oh, look at that. Oh, it's gooey. But then it makes them ask, well, why is it gooey? I mean, for instance, insects teaches them about the exoskeleton and things like that. And with algae, you start to learn about chlorophyll and photosynthesis and the importance of algae for, the oxygen on Earth. So that's extremely exciting. And I really want to keep updated on that. But I do kind of want to go back to World Algae Day because that is coming up October the 12th.